Uh, Good morning, Marlene. You can continue now.
Okay. Now, I'm not able to see who is signed in with me, so I'm really interested once we perhaps can have a audio that all of you can be able to, I can know who is in the webinar, because I'm interested to know, because I do have a great time talking with each of you as we move along in the program. So this morning, I know there's been a lot of questions about the kind of work that I do with the candidates as far as the resume review that I do with them, as well as how I communicate with the people that I have worked with on an individual basis. So we're going to move along, and I'll talk to you specifically. I'm going to demonstrate how I actually begin to work with a client and once they send me their resume. What generally would happen is when people are registered with Skills International, I will contact them with a letter that will introduce myself, as well as introduce the whole idea that they would be able to meet with me, have a conversation about their job search, as well as take a look at their resume, and then talk about how they would be targeting a resume when they have a specific job position that they would be looking for. What I generally do is I have them send me a generic resume, and I receive it beforehand, have a chance to have a quick preview, and then once I phone them, I use the TeamViewer software, which allows them to see my screen and make changes as we have a conversation about each of the points that are on the resume. So I think I'll go right into the demonstration. Okay, give me 1 minute here. I'm going to start with Shola tomorrow. Shola has a background. Let me just open her up here. Shola has a background as a customer service trainer. And when I talk with Shola, what I do, and this is a general overview of what I do with every client when I speak with them. I do a general overview of their background and experience. They let me know what are the highlights of their background, what they are hoping to do. So we talk about their specific goals, and we also talk about what are their target companies. I know that in the JSW you do a review of how to target the companies that fit their skills. So I take a good review of that particular area, because once we start looking at the targeted resumes, how your resume may change, and how you're going to be looking at the particular job postings. I do ask them if they can let me know which are their 3 top target companies. And then from there, I talk to them about which companies they have applied to, and I refer regularly back to what they have learned in the job search workshop, referring to the fact that they have learned the skills, the tools that are necessary to conduct a good job search. And then I proceed to ask them what they are doing at this point in their job search and how they are going about using the tools that they have learned while they've been with you in the job search workshop. By the way, I've been getting wonderful feedback on the workshops, and most all of the candidates have all good things to say about the workshops. So we talk about the skills and the tools that they've learned, and discuss each one and review with people. It seems that a lot of people are relying on the online application systems. We talk about the competition. We talk about how those online online job postings rather are put there, are visible to everyone, and the competition is what is going to be a difficult thing for them to move into a position that they're going to be contacted, phone interviewed, or organizing a regular in-person. interview. I review the tools. I talk about the online applications. I talk about LinkedIn, how they are using LinkedIn, whether they have a profile, whether they are trying to connect with people, particularly in their target companies that they've identified. Look at connecting with the people if they have found jobs that they have seen on the LinkedIn process. And we talk about networking. We talk about cold calling, and that's contacting the companies that are the companies that they have on their target list, and if they're able to get a contact name and whether or not they can send a resume for a potential position in the department that their skill sets and their previous work experience has been. A lot of what I do is I continually come back to what they have done in the job search workshop, what they have learned, and encouraging them to utilize all of those skills. I think that the reinforcement of the types of methods for job search is really valuable for people. It's a good way to reinforce what they have learned with you folks and be able to move forward with their job search. I talk about a general overview of what I'm going to be doing, which includes their resume review, and I talk about Skills International in that, and the way I am describing it is in two ways. One is that when we do have job postings from employers, we will do a search in the database, and I reinforce the importance of their profiles. And after I have talked about that, then I refer to the concept of when they have specific target companies, if they have applied to a particular online job search or an online job posting rather, the process would be for them to contact me, provide me with a copy of the job posting, the URL of the company, if they have a contact name that they've been able to research, and send me their resume and cover letter that they have used for that particular company or would like to use. And then I'm able to take a look at the job posting, compare with what they have designed for their resume, for their cover letter, and make any changes that I might see as far as whether or not it is indeed a good targeted resume, which is going from the particular points that are in the job posting and moving into that targeted resume. And again, this is something that you have reviewed with them, you have talked with them, you have worked with them, and it's a general review, a general work at their particular cover letter and their profile. I'm not on the chat, but just a comment, if you do have any questions as we move along, please be sure to send them in and we can see about addressing them probably at the end of the presentation. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to begin with Shola. When I met with Shola and we talked about all the things that I referred to previously, and I had a quick review of her resume. So when we meet, I would put her resume onto the screen and put it into a smaller size so that we won't be able to actually read the text, but particularly I will let her know that the art of the resume can be important to an employer, how the resume looks, how professional it is, and primarily what is it that they see that you want them to see. As quickly as possible, because as we all know, employers are looking at resumes very quickly. They're looking at the kind of work experience. They may not even read the details of the work experience. They skim, they look at the education and their certificates and so on. But it is really important that we want to make sure that the ease that the employer is able to find the resume information is going to be as readable as possible and as quickly as possible, as I mentioned. This is what Shola had sent me. And we talked about the use of white space. She has a white space here after her career history. She has no white space after career highlights. We look at the border. We look at the fact that onto page 2 has her remainder of her work experience from page 1. As we go along as well, and I do go through each particular section with them for content, I do also let them know that what I will be reviewing and how I will be reviewing is the kind of art, as I mentioned, that is going to be used on their customized resume as well, so that they have a good idea of when they are making some changes that they want to be cognizant of what is happening on page 2, how their headers look, and so on. So this is what Shola has done initially, and this is what the resume looks like after I have done a review with her. So when I do the review, as I mentioned, I'll go back to her before one. So I will speak with her specifically. Okay, how her header looks. She has decided not to put her address here. I'd be interested to know what kind of advice, and perhaps we can address that question afterwards. I do not give them any particular advice regarding whether or not they want to put their address at the top. This is something that I mentioned to them, that it is completely a personal kind of process or kind of look that they want to have with it. So Shola, we talked about her goal, and she's very specific about getting into customer training. So we took a look at what she has in her career highlights. In terms of formatting, I would probably make some changes. I like to put in a 4-point space after some of them, so spacing is particularly important. I will look through her highlights briefly, but quite often what I will do is I will move to the bottom section to take a look at sort of a chronological. I'll take a quick look at her educational qualifications, make a few changes as we move along. People will always say, oh yes, that's good, which really feels good, and I also reinforce very strongly when I am working on someone's resume that they must tell me what kind of advice they have received from other people, and particularly the job search workshop people who have worked on their resume. So I want them to let me know, because as we all know, I'm sure, it can be very, very confusing to people to get conflicting advice in regard to how to work on their resume. So I do try to work a lot on the cosmetic changes and how the resume reads. I also tell them that I'm going to take out redundant information. I take out articles. I look at how there are word wraps. So I would probably look at this word wrap and see how we would be able to fit it on 2 lines just because of the general look. So here would be an article I would remove. So led team of 3 other trainers in conducting 2-month training and induction program for new employees on customer service skills. And I might put a comma in here, bank-related courses. Now, this one hasn't done a word wrap. Bad example. I'll have to see how I did it. I might even move over their margins, which is something I always look at. So let's move on to her finished copy, and I'll move it into a little bigger size again. Whoa, that's a really bigger size. Okay, and let's take a look at a view in a side-by-side version. Make it just a little bit smaller, then we can see both pages at a time. So I look at how many highlights they do have in their section for the highlights. For Shola, she had done a really wonderful job of her content in her profile. So I didn't make really a lot of changes in the content of her profile. She had done a really good job. What I typically do, and I can show you on some of the other resumes, she has put this in a larger font, which in some cases is fine. But what I generally work on is how the employer is going to be able to read what are her background and experience and read it quickly. So as this one, the employer is needing to look at all of the information in a block format. So what I did with Shola is I take out the space. If some people will put space after where they work, and then put the space here under their title names so that the job posting is able to be seen very quickly by an employer. Again, as I move along, I talk about whether or not she would make any kind of major changes, because the kind of work that she's looking for is very, very specific to her background and experience. And she is interested in more of a senior role. So you can see how what I did is I put in a little bit of space after her career highlights. I work at consistently being consistent. So as we moved along, I made sure that her titles were easy to be seen. We look at the white space at the bottom, and sometimes I'll work on moving things down a little bit up in her header, because, as I'm saying, we're working on the art. So here, obviously, we moved her extra part through doing some spacing, perhaps doing some word wrapping differences where there's one word that might be word wrapped. Under her educational qualifications, you can see that I've put some extra spaces here. I've put her educational degrees into bold, and again you can see how it's just easier to read. And her professional certifications as well, I took out the bullets and put into bold the same kinds of things. So if we again look at it sort of in its entirety, how easy is it to read? What does the employer see as quickly as possible? What is the look and feel of the resume? Sure, why not? Okay, let's take a look at another one. I'm going to try to go through them a little more quickly because I have given you much more of a detailed process when it comes to Shola's. This is a smaller version, which again I would use with NASA when I was looking at her resume. Her name title is, I would probably look to put it in bold to be consistent with her subject matter, or her headlines otherwise. And as we talked about her specific skills, we decided that it would make some sense for her to put her specific skills in a much more readable format and in a table within her resume. So again, I've put some space around where she worked. We talked about her accomplishments that she added to her professional experience. So you can see again the difference in what I refer to as the art and the ease for reading. So if we take a look at from page 2 to page 1, and let's go a little bigger. I like to, as much as possible, try to give a little bit more of an impact in their objective statement. Some of them have just basic objectives of the position they're looking for, and Neza has chosen to put a little bit more information where she can demonstrate her skills of communicate effectively to meet organizational needs. Sometimes that comes across as something that employers are not going to read quickly, so we put it on one line and refer to it as a position in the accounting department to demonstrate my skills, experience, and progress towards her CPA. The CPA is something that's pretty important as she's moving into the world of accounting, so that was something that we felt would be an important thing and the objective. And I do say something that we felt because it's something that I work with the candidate or the client in terms of what do you think of this, how do you like it. Many times I will be looking for words and I will throw out many different kinds of words that are similar kinds of words, and it will be the client themselves that will decide on what word that they prefer or the kind of sentence, or make sure that my interpretation of what they have put into that particular point is going to be the right interpretation that they want the reader to see. So if we, I'll make this a little bit smaller again. Maybe make this slightly smaller. Okay, so you can see the difference from her original into the one that we have worked on together. So we've actually put her Bachelor of Finance together with the number of years that she has in general accounting, her degree, and her CPA that she's working on. She changed it from level 3 to level 5 as we were working on it. Then her soft skills were put second, and I suggested that it might make more sense for her to put her soft skills further to the bottom and make sure that her proficiencies in the computer areas are going to be much more prominent at the top. And then we moved into the soft skills and decided that each of the things that she is good at would be good for an easy read for employers to be able to see exactly the kind of work that she had done before. And again, you can see how we made a bit of a change in being able to see her job posting, her job history very quickly, her accomplishments. Again, we made a few changes. One of them was not really an accomplishment, so we moved it further towards the top. Again, you can see the kind of changes that we made. Not a lot of changes. She had done an excellent job. Also, there's times when people will put extra spaces in between some of the lines, so that I'm consistently looking at what kind of spaces they have put in between the lines to make sure that from one section to the next it's always consistent with what they have in all parts of their resume. And again, just a few changes as far as we put the education and training together in this case because there were only one piece in each. And the other thing that I'm very interested to know from you folks is the recommendation that you have for the references available upon request. I am of two minds. Sometimes I will suggest that they do put it, and my variables that I look at are how it looks. Whether or not it's a nice closing for the document, or whether it's not something that is unnecessary, which seems to be the general view of employers as well as other people that are working on the resume process with people.
So, Marlene, shall we open the poll?
Sure. There is one more I thought I would show. Actually, I have a few more, and if people do want to look at those, I'm very happy. I just wanted to show Jimmy's because we made some more drastic kinds of changes on Jimmy's. Oh, that's Neza, I'm sorry.
So what we could do right now is to register your client in our waiting list. So when the time
Here we go.
connect with this individual and invite this individual to
Okay, with Jimmy's, he
prior step.
okay, so this is his original.
Are you familiar with the program?
And this is the one that I have worked to modify. So you can see I've taken the lines out. I've made some changes to his header, and again, let's take a look at the side-by-side version. Okay, and we went through the document. We looked at all of the work experience that he had in his background and experience, and then we took a look at how the resume looks. So we went through point by point and then looked at how his use of lines, whether it looked like clutter, and obviously because he had a work record that was very solid, we made sure that it was easy to be seen, and we were able to put a third job description or a third point about his background and experience onto the first page, and we were able also to, we worked on his header and put a header on the second page. Okay, Raj, do you want to open it up for some questions?
Especially the question that you asked about references. Okay, we have a little poll, so let's open it up for the
perfect.
audience. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, the poll is on. The question is, do you recommend putting references available upon request on resumes? Okay, so that's going on fast. We're almost there.
Okay. It's an interesting question because I will have some people telling me yes, and I have others telling me no.
Yeah.
And so I'm very interested.
We've
As I
got
said-
65% saying yes and 35% saying no.
Interesting.
Back to you, Marlene.
Okay, I'm not sure, Raj, was there another poll that I had suggested up to this point?
Oh, up to this point, I don't see you have other questions like, do you have an employment intermediary program at your agency? So they're not resume specific. They're,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, let's review that
Yes.
as we go on. I'm just wondering if I can go through some different resumes just to show them quickly, but I think we're probably almost ready to just go to a question and answer, because I think the questions and answers will also give me a much better idea of what people are wanting to know about, wanting to hear as we move along.
So we'll take some questions now, Marlene?
Sure.
All right.
Am I able to continue my screen sharing to look at resumes before and afters?
Yes, of course. So ladies and gentlemen, please, type in your questions. And as and when Marlene goes through some of the questions, and then probably she will continue with the resumes as well. So that'll kind of make it better. Okay, I already have a couple of questions here, Marlene.
Okay.
For how long your support will continue with the client? Samir asked this question.
Good question. ad infinitum, as long as they would like to connect with me. I'm not sure, I could look it up, who had Maisam Arami. He was a fellow who was in reinsurance. I connected with him for quite some time. He let me know of the companies that were good for his skill set. As I was doing continued research, I would suggest some of the companies that would make sense for him, and work to follow up with his applications that he had sent to those companies. And he was successful in getting a job, and made sure that he let me know as well. So I do work towards establishing a relationship with the candidate. When they let me know sort of the family of companies that they have as their targets, it also gives me a better idea of what other kinds of companies are, I call it family, in that family of companies. So it depends on the person, depends on how often they reach out to me. Okay, any other questions, Raj?
So far,
Hi,
so
Marlene. Can you hear me? This is Susanna.
Oh, hi, Susanna. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you? I'm sorry, I actually had to join later. We had a bit of a technical issue on my end. Anyway, I wanted to just maybe take this opportunity to ask you a couple of questions. When you and I spoke yesterday about your connection with employers and their requests and the reasons why certain changes are being made, and you know, the idea around targeting based on employer needs, maybe this could be a good opportunity to touch on some of that stuff.
Okay, it's the whole area of employer outreach takes place in a number of ways. Sometimes I will look at some of the job postings that a particular company has online, especially those postings that I feel I would have some good candidates for that employer. So I would reach out to that employer, tell them that I have noticed that they have a particular posting online. How would you feel about me putting your posting into our system that has many candidates who would be good candidates for that particular, for their company, and whether or not they would be agreeable to me sending them some of the resumes that I find. Sometimes it will be reaching out to the employer in a cold call variety, or a cold call system, as you might call it, but I'm very cognizant of making sure that I would have some candidates who are in the basket of recruits that would be a good recruitment candidate, so that we can maintain the credibility that we have with the employer. And then as well, reaching out once the candidate has sent me their resume, they let me know what kind of position in that particular company that they see themselves as being a good fit. I don't know if Jay is with us this morning, but I had a conversation or a communication over the last few days with Andre Santos, and he has given me a few of his target companies. You have sent me, Jay, you have sent me another contact person that Andres has actually talked to you about, so I will be connecting with that person, that company as well. Did that answer the question, Susanna?
Yes, I just really wanted to sort of give everybody an opportunity to understand how, you know, the targeting works from your end, and what that means to for JSW / Skills International clients. So it's not always possible to necessarily target to a posting, but it might be, you know, more of a targeting based on the employer needs that you're connecting or matching clients with.
Well, it depends. The reaching out to the employers isn't always related to a particular job posting. If a candidate tells me that ABC Insurance Company, I'm going back to MySem, is a really good company for his skill set, they may or may not have a job posting there. So it could be a method of me reaching out to that particular HR person, introducing MySem. Can I send you his resume? Do you mind if I follow up? Following up with that particular person, have they had a chance to look at it? Does it seem like the person is appropriate for a role within your company? Do you have any upcoming present or upcoming positions that you may be looking for? What is your plans in the next 6 months? Are you growing? Are you going to be looking? How is your movement towards looking for new recruits happening within the next 6 months or 1 year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, the targeting doesn't always have to be very, very narrow. In other words, it could be used for, you know, what we consider a cold call or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yes, and to me, it's the targeting is critical. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll talk about an actual target that you would be sending an arrow at, and you can send out 100 arrows, and your arrows can be in the outer circles.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you're applying for a job and you're firing it off, what are the chances of someone else being in the center of that target? Someone who has more experience, someone who has more of a fit to that particular company. So the idea is that every person has a particular set of skills, and if we're looking at Jennifer Alexander, who's right here right now, is with her particular kind of background and experience, she is looking at very specific organizations. She can spend all her time looking online to see if she can find a company that does this kind of thing that has a job posting. Or she can be more specific about taking a look at who are the people, who are the companies or universities who may be looking for someone in that kind of work, in that kind of research, and letting me know what those organizations are, and then working together with her as far as getting her resume into their hands.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to confirm that, yes, Jay Polani is with us today, and she just responded and said, thanks, Marlene, this way works well, where the client takes responsibility to reach out to employers. It really encourages clients to take control of their job search. So there you go. Anyway, I'm going to let Raj get back in, and we'll continue the presentation, so thanks very much.
Okay, this is Jennifer. And you can see differences, some of the changes that I made. We took off the bullets so that her areas of expertise would stand out more prominently. We put her education prominent instead of where she actually took her education, because what is most important is her degrees, especially showing her PhD. When you look into the research area, what she's hoping to be doing is going to be primarily in research. And again, just not a lot of changes in the bottom other than making sure that the title of what she had done is more prominent in that margin.
And Marlene,
Yes.
there was a comment about that particular section. Mushtari says she feels it's still a little bit crowded.
Yes, you are right. And if we look at it, either one, let's look at the other one. It is. It definitely is. And it's something that let me see, this is the modified one. Okay, let me make it a little smaller. Yes, no doubt about it that it is more crowded than I would suggest. We talked about it. We talked about how her education is rather significant. You can see that her education is taking a lot of space. My preference would have been to put some space in between each of her degrees. And her professional experience is there, but it's her research experience is a little bit more predominant. She has more sections. She has teaching, she has publications, and she has conference presentations. We also talked about how she might, depending on the job posting or depending on the organization that she might be applying to make some changes, for example, taking off her publications and her conference presentations, and making some changes toward putting in a little bit more space under her degrees, and moving, perhaps having her professional experience begin on page 2, give a little bit more room at the top. So we did talk about all those things, and Jennifer, very brilliant woman, and will certainly take that into account. And as she does a little bit more of her targeting, perhaps some of these areas that she has listed in her technical skills, that is all her areas, cell biology, molecular biology, how she may take some of those out or even combine some of those points together. Anything else, Raj?
No, I mean this is a very interesting example. Like, I mean, from my own experience, I can see which requires more prominence, whether in this case the education or the research experience. Depending on the job that they're targeting, one or the other becomes more important. I think the client has to be the best judge when it comes to which particular skill the employer is really looking for, especially when they're targeting a position. So I think we have to extract that information from the client so that we end up with a very targeted resume. What do you think?
Well, I couldn't agree more. So it's interesting because in my experience over the years, every question, I tell people that every question that is asked in a job search scenario the answer is, it depends. Because it depends on the job posting, it depends on your background and experience, it depends on location, it depends on whether or not, in this case, you have done research, you have done teaching, or you have done laboratory kind of work. So yes, the issue around research is, in most cases, research is requiring a PhD. So it depends on whether or not she is ready, willing, and able to take a more junior position, although it's somewhat difficult for someone like her to even be able to get into a junior position because her background and experience is so extensive. I'd also be interested in knowing from people, well, or maybe I'll just give my opinion, in people choosing to hide a particular educational background. My opinion is that it can be downplayed, but in terms of hiding their actual background and experience, or I'm sorry, their educational degrees, my opinion is that it's not a good, I do not recommend it. And I would be interested to know if other people do make that recommendation. I had an example one time where a fellow did not put in his master's degree it was in a mechanical engineering job. And when a job opening came up in the area of needing a master's degree. He wanted to apply for that job. They told him that he did not have a master's degree. He said, yes, I do. They went back to his resume. It wasn't there, and he was they had to scrutinize very carefully, and he actually lost the job because of the dishonesty factor. So it's a really tricky question because, as we all know, it's this overqualification issue that our clients face. So it is it's a difficult one. My opinion is that it needs to be put there. It might not be put into their highlights. In her case, she might even put her education in a reverse chronological order, so her PhD does not come off as the first thing that someone reads. Depending on the job, whether it is sort of in the medical laboratory area, it might be considered to target her resume to do some major changes on her resume. If it was strictly in a laboratory kind of job, that might be more of a more junior as a starting point.
All right. Marlene, I have another note from another participant of at the webinar, Jackie, from Niagara.
Hi, Jackie.
She says, good morning, Marlene. Just wondering if the initial feedback you will provide clients will not be contradictory to our clients as we follow the suggestions of the JSW curriculum and no longer encourage objective statements and highlight statements, but have moved towards creating targeted accomplishment statements to satisfy the need to target content to the specific posting. Thanks. And I know that you are familiar with the I guess curriculum sections that tackle resume writing, so perhaps there's something.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the summary of qualifications be directly related to the job posting? Is that what you're referring to?
Well,
I'm not sure.
So Jackie is saying that, you know, the JSW curriculum is actually really very much focusing on targeting to specific postings, and we're kind of stepping away from that general, you know, objective statements and highlight statements, but very targeted. Accomplishments are listed in those areas. So she's wondering if that initial feedback that you're giving to clients is actually perhaps contradictory or contradicting what the JSW curriculum is trying to achieve.
Okay, I'm very cognizant when I do read a resume of what has been initially on that particular resume, so that depending on how they have their summary of qualifications, we're looking at more particularly sort of her general, what is it that we want to be highlighted. As far as the targeted resumes, I do make it very clear to make sure that when they see a particular job posting or even a company that they feel is a really good company, depending on the kind of work that they do, that the targeting that they have learned through the job search workshop, I'm really very cognizant of making sure that I will reinforce what it is that they're saying. I do feel that it's important to have a general overview at the beginning of their resume. I worked on a resume yesterday, and he came off as the first point. He was a civil engineer, and his first point was something that was in the job posting, I'm sure, but it came off as having a lot more experience. It came off really strong as his first point. So I usually like to make sure that what it is that the employer is reading at the first initial point, what are they seeing first? What is standing out in their resume? What is going to catch the employer's attention in the first, second points, and then go on from then? So I'm not sure if that is contradictory. It is my style, and the other thing that is something that I'll let people know is that there is no such thing as a perfect resume. Everybody has different views on how resumes are done. They need to make their own decisions around what they have heard from different people if that is the case. And biggest thing being, what is it? What do you want to stand out? Are there some accomplishments definitely related to that position that you feel would be good to put into your summary? Now, I know that at the top, some of the soft skills are given underneath the job objective. I also talk about the job objective as being something that is a flexible thing, because it's not necessarily unless it's a cold call kind of application. But I know there is sometimes the soft skills area that people are putting below. If they have it, I don't make any kind of comments. If they don't have it, I don't necessarily recommend that they put it in. Did that answer your question, Jackie?
We'll wait to hear from Jackie, but I know Raj has a few additional questions lined up. So,
it's a multi-part question, addressing the same issue. Samir has this question about employable and unemployable clients. He's talking about, two types of job-ready clients, and he says one of the type is employable, the other one is unemployable, and he says that we know that majority of new immigrants fall under unemployable part, and how are we going to help these people? And he also says the unemployable people can be very much job ready in terms of their technical skills. So in a sense, he feels like the Canadian employers may not be able to recognize these skills since they're job ready but unemployable. So it's kind of a tricky question.
My first thought came that the people who are referred to Skills International need to be considered job ready. If you say they have technical skills but they're unemployable, I'm just not sure what that means. Because, as you know, the referrals that we do receive to Skills International, we do consider them as having a job-ready profile, so that they're able to go into a job that is an appropriate job.
yeah, I think that might be Samir, perhaps you want to give us a direct example of somebody that you have in mind with particular skills, because there is a very specific sort of outline of which clients are meant to be referred to Skills International. In the meantime, Raj, do you want to continue?
Beth has another question here, Marlene. She says employers can only browse resumes for like 20 seconds or something like that. So we need to capture the employer's attention within that time frame. So the success or accomplishment statements right on top or highlights on top will most likely attract employer to call the applicant for a job interview. So this, she says, it was emphasized in the JSW curriculum, and she wants to, get your comment on that.
I would agree with that. I would not necessarily. It depends. It depends on the type of accomplishment related to the level of seniority, if you like, or the level of the job that is being applied for. For example, and I'll go back to my civil engineer, it was a junior position that he was looking at, So an accomplishment of managing 6 projects at the same time while being responsible for 10 staff and 5 contractors might not be the kind of accomplishment that's going to move him ahead, because he's going to be put into that, well, what does this guy really want to do? Does he want to work in this junior position? So it does depend on the kind of job that people are applying for. Yeah, she doesn't have accomplishments. I really like in the summary, I like having accomplishments sometimes put below into another subsection, into another section, so that summary can be skimmed and the accomplishments can be readily available for the employer to look at. And again, the accomplishments, they want to be related to the position and the job description that may be at the particular position. Although many of the accomplishments, even though they aren't related, do show things like initiative, hardworking, the kinds of things that, you know, in Iman's case might be ensuring that certain kinds of testing had been done, certain kinds of new billing situations had been set up. I forgot to unset my clock and it's chiming 11. It's a good thing.
I think I'll allow for maybe another question or two if there are any questions left, but I know we do have a couple of polls still, so I'm not sure if maybe this would be a better time to just oh, there's Beth says quite important in making sure JSW clients don't get confused with other advice after attending 8 days of workshop, so thanks. But anyway, maybe Raj, you take over with the polls and we kind of try and...
Okay, the next poll is, do you have an Employment Ontario program at your agencies? One of the polls there. So please go ahead and okay, so we're getting the results are in, almost there. No, it's well, almost 80% of them voting. We have 75% of the people saying no, they don't, while 25% says yes, they do have an Employment Ontario agency at the location. So predominantly, people do not have an EO location, service at their location. So Marlene, that answers your question there?
Yes, I'm surprised, quite honestly. I would have thought that there was a higher percentage of agencies that do have an Employment Ontario program. The next poll, Raj,
yes.
was
okay, so it's going on right now. It talks about, do you refer clients to EVO when they complete the JSW program? Okay, again, with almost 80% of the votes in, there's no surprise here, like 80 to 20, 80% of them referred the clients after completing the JSW to an EO service, while 20% do not. They probably refer to other services.
Okay. Okay, so depending on the other service, i.e. bridging programs, which are very valuable, as well. The reason I was interested in asking that kind of question is there are some of the clients who are asking for more support. I might feel that their resume might need an overabundant amount of work, although I must tell you all that the resumes that are coming in are really well done. Content very well. I like to think about the concept of the polish on the resume, which gives the client more confidence in their resume. The other factor is going through their resumes point by point and having them explain some of the things that they have done can be a beneficial kind of thing to their interview. Going back to sort of the question is there are times when I really feel like that client could use assistance from a organization that does more of the job search side or a bridging side. I'm a little bit nervous. I know with MicroSkills one time there was a particular client that had been referred, hadn't followed up, or no, in his case it was he had been referred, he's gone to any number of agencies, and for the same reasons that I felt that he needed support from one of those organizations, and he had already been quite involved and had been one of those people who was sort of hopping from different programs to others. So I do, in certain cases, I do ask them if there is an EO program, if they have been referred, and I always ask them what kind of additional assistance are they getting currently for their job search. And it varies. Many are in bridging programs. Many are going to an EO program. It depends.
And the next poll question is related to Skills International system.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about, are you receiving an email when notes are entered into Skills International system?
Am I audible, Raj?
Yes, you are, Marlene.
Okay. The reason I'm asking this is if there is any incorrect entry of an email address, you will not be getting that email. So I'm just wanting to confirm that everyone is receiving. I will enter a note of when I've talked to someone, enter a note of what's happening with that person. Yeah. So I just want to confirm that everyone is receiving those notes.
Yeah, they're coming in. It's been a long session. I guess people are a little bit tired now.
Oh, yes, well, I think we're going a little bit over time from what had been anticipated.
Okay, so the minute is up, and I've got close to like about 70% of them, 70% of the polls, and like 80% says yes, they do receive an email, while about 20% says no, they do not receive an email.
Okay, I would like to ask that 20% to let me know so that I can double check their account to make sure that there's not a problem with the entry of their counselor account in the system.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very crucial thing, right? You know, there should be some kind of a confirmation that people do receive emails.
Yes, yes, for sure, because it's notes are entered every time that I do talk with a client. Sometimes, depending on the client, I will make some notes about the kinds of other programs that they're involved in. It's sort of a for your information kind of note. It's also notes that I keep for myself because with working with so many people, I need to make sure that I keep copious notes on what's happening with this person.
That's so true. After all, you have, you don't want things to slip through your fingers. The last and final poll question is, are you receiving an email when a person is recommended to apply for a specific position?
The reason I'm asking this one is the note would be sent posting for administrative assistant at ABC Company. And this is a system issue that I'm communicating with Sohail with, because when I enter that note, I enter it in a much different way because I have multiple candidates that I put in. So I don't go into their individual file. I would go into a big system and enter names and enter one note that would be sent out. So the note would say sent posting for position to at what company. That would be the note, typically.
Well, after the last poll, I mean, results, this one is no surprise either. 30% say yes, they do, while 70% of them say no, they do not receive an email. Okay.
Curious. I need to talk with Sohail about that particular issue because it is a different way of entering data. And so I do want to make sure that the facilitators are knowing which candidates are recommended where.
I was just going to say something and then I realized that I was muted, but I think that this is actually a very good exercise to see, you know, because you might be thinking, Marlene, that all these notifications come out, yet when we address some of the issues with staff at the regional meetings and questions come up, you know, around effectiveness, around matches, around, you know, connection to employers, et cetera, they don't seem to be aware of what those matches are. So I think that there's definitely some kind of a disconnect there in the system that we need to look at and make sure that a glitch is eliminated. But luckily, there's some, you know, great numbers that I've recently seen in reports. And I think that perhaps what we could do is also, I know it's going to be a little more on a general level at that point, but maybe we can prepare a bit of a fact sheet on JSWSI clients and put that on the website so people can see, you know, the activities that are happening or that have happened over the past few months. And then in the, maybe for the, you know, the next step would be to see why these notifications actually don't go out to the respective facilitators.
Well, and my first poll was I definitely need to know from the people who are not receiving those notes, because that's a definite that there's probably a mistake in their email, because the system, if it generates at 75% or whatever percent, it absolutely would do all of them.
All right, so something to look at, definitely.
So it's just a matter of sending me an email.
Okay, so maybe what we can do also is a bit of a survey, but not to just jump into doing some, you know, resolving technical issues with SI right now. Unless there are any other questions, you know, with regards to resume development and SI involvement, perhaps we just
Can sign off.
Sign off. Call it a session.
Yeah, but it's a great exercise, Marlene, because you know it's nice when there are two different systems that's working in synchrony. We need to make sure we address these issues and bridge the gap. So, you know, we're all on the same page. We're only reinforcing each other, not duplicating or you know, totally deviating from a path. So it's a wonderful exercise. I think it yeah.
The only other thing that I'd like to say is, for some of you I have contacted to have a personal conversation with, and be forewarned, the people who I haven't contacted. I'll be after you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marlene, for your time.
Well, you're very welcome.
And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Happy Friday, happy weekend, and we'll, I guess, see everybody via a webcam, which we tried today for the first time. during our next webinar that I think some of you have already registered for. It's on January 21st. So happy weekend, everybody.
Thank you all.
Happy weekend. Bye-bye.